Good morning. Right now it's Monday morning. Well, actually, I'm recording this on Sunday, and I'm going to be posting it tomorrow morning. But I think the schedule that I kind of settled on is to upload Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday morning. So what I'm going to try to do is record 3 videos today. That way I can just hit upload Monday, Wednesday, Friday. With all that said, hope your morning's going well. And what I want to talk about today is that Jesus is the Good Shepherd. And if you don't understand his role as a shepherd and your role as a sheep, it can make everything kind of complicated. The way I would describe it is you being a passenger in a car, but you wouldn't know how to be a passenger, and because of that, you're constantly trying to grab the wheel, tell the driver how to drive, and you're constantly trying to just take control. But as long as you're constantly trying to do that, you're going to have a bad time as a passenger. Even though the whole time you didn't know you had the luxury of being able to look at the scenery, pick the radio station, pick the music, help give the driver directions, talk to the driver. In this life, you have the ability to enjoy it a lot more than you currently do. If you would understand that you have a role as the flock of God, and that Jesus as a shepherd has his own role. So we know from John chapter 10 that Jesus is the good shepherd. So John chapter 10 verse 14, Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and have known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep." Now, when we talk about your role as the flock of God, as the sheep, as sons of God, sons and daughters of God, just narrow that down a little bit. To really understand your role, a good place to go is Ezekiel 34. And what's happening in Ezekiel 34 is God is rebuking the shepherds of Israel because they haven't been properly the shepherds of Israel haven't properly been helping the people of Israel. And if we look, God rebukes the shepherds for a lot of things, but he doesn't rebuke the sheep. He doesn't rebuke the flock. And if we look at what happened to the flock, you'll be like, oh man, like those flock guys, they're not the brightest. They're not the smartest apples in the world. So let's start in Ezekiel chapter 34. We're going to start at verse 4. So this is what the Lord is rebuking the shepherds for. "The disease have you not strengthened, neither have you healed that which was sick, neither have you bound up that which was broken, neither have you brought again that which was driven away, neither have you sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have you ruled them. And they were scattered because there is no shepherd, and they became meat to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yes, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them." So from this, we know that the sheep are not capable of strengthening themselves. They're not capable of strengthening themselves, healing their own hearts. They're not able to find their way back if they were driven away. They're not able to find their way back if they were lost. And we know that they became meat to the beasts in the fields. They became prey. And you look at these 6 things, and you're like, oh man, like could the sheep be a little smarter? Like that would probably help a little bit. But realize that God does not hold the sheep accountable for all of these things happening. He holds the shepherds accountable. And what's really cool is throughout the rest of Ezekiel 34, God says, I'm going to remove all the shepherds, and I'm going to set one shepherd over them, my servant David. And this one servant is going to properly take care of them. So when we go back to John chapter 10, that's what Jesus is saying. He says, I'm the good shepherd. All the shepherds in the past, you've deserted the flock, but Jesus, as the good shepherd, he's never going to abandon his flock, nor is he ever going to not properly take care of them. So just kind of to recap a little bit before we get too far, realize that you're not responsible for strengthening yourselves, healing yourselves, binding up your own broken heart, finding your way back if you get lost, or keeping yourself from becoming meat, from becoming prey. That's Jesus' responsibility as the shepherd. Now, your responsibility as the sheep, if we go back to John chapter 10, we're going to go to verse 27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So now as a sheep, you're really only capable of two things: hearing the voice of the shepherd and following the shepherd, which is really cool, honestly. You get to hear God one-on-one, which is awesome. Now, when Jesus says that my sheep hear my voice and they follow me, that gives us good insight as to how we live our lives as sheep. As a sheep, you have to keep your heart guarded so that it's always sensitive to God, so that you can hear his voice when it's needed. And so let's say you're a sheep over here. You're a sheep over here, and you hear Jesus' voice from over here. What that means is that all that's happening is when you get a prompting from the Holy Spirit to do something, or you feel like Jesus is telling you to do something, it's not that he's driving you out into the wilderness to figure it out, but rather he's already gone ahead of you and he's calling you to him. So next time you have an unction to pray for someone, realize that Jesus is already there calling you. When Jesus is saying pray for this person, Jesus is already there calling you to him. So he's already with that person, calling you to that person, so you can work together to pray for that person. It's not go out ahead of me and do this while I kick back and see how you do. No, that's not it at all. Even though there's a driver and a passenger, they can work together. And even though the passenger isn't in charge of the steering wheel or the brake pedals, the passenger can still talk to the driver and give directions and play a role in everything, albeit more of a supportive role. And so with that in mind, just give yourself mercy and let yourself off the hook for a lot of things that you might think you're responsible for, and that if you are in a bad situation, God doesn't hold you accountable for that. Life happens, things happen, but all that matters is that Jesus is a good shepherd, and he will never dissolve his duties of being a good shepherd. He's always going to want to fulfill his role and help you wherever you're at. And there's comfort knowing that if he's calling you to do something, that he has already gone out ahead of you and made sure that the path is easy enough for you to tread that path, that it's not something that you're incapable of doing. So with all that said, next time I think we'll talk about being a servant and a minister and how that's actually a really awesome thing. But until then, what time are we at? Oh wow, it's a long one. Well, until then, I'll talk to you guys later and have a good day.